Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Lawcast. This time, we're deviating from our typical formula, as rather than covering, one show like we typically do, we're going to cover the run of the legendary Dave Batista in honor of his announcing his retirement from wrestling. Just felt like we needed to pay homage to the animal on this occasion.
We just had a couple of back and forth text sessions where we just started man, wasn't Batista great? Man, remember this thing Batista did? And it would just go on and on and on. It was like, wait, was Batista one of the best ever? What is happening?
I think he's certainly one of the most underrated of all time because he would never come up when we were talking about the best wrestlers ever. He was not one of the best in-ring performers of all
No,
time.
no, no, no. And we're not going to reverse engineer it and try to claim that he was, because he had a 3-year span where he was good in the ring. He was never more than that.
But what he was, I think, is one of the best characters of all time.
Yes. And I mean, we're definitely going to get into this, but especially now, we've gone on at length about how you need relationships in order to make any storyline mean anything in professional wrestling. And these days, it's so hard to find anybody who has any character development at all. Like, a lot of the people on the roster these days haven't had a single ounce of character development in years. But Batista, for some reason, his career is just so rich with interesting storylines and interesting things that he did and ways that his character changes and grows. And it's just such a fascinating ride to look through his career.
Yeah, even as his character changes, it always seems to make sense. There's always a good explanation for why he suddenly became a selfish dickhead.
He's the same person from start to finish. He just makes different decisions and he grows and this happens, this happens. It's not one of those random turns where haha, I'm evil now. Bah!
Yeah. Yeah. And he had the performing chops to sell it. I mean, it's in retrospect not that surprising that he's hit it big as an actor, because I think not really his speaking, but kind of the unspoken part of his performances are better than really anybody in wrestling. The facial expressions, the subtleties of what he was doing when he wasn't talking.
Yeah, part of this was just going back and watching a lot of YouTube clips of his biggest moments and stuff. And he just had this way about him where you knew exactly what he was thinking just by the look on his face. And he just had this way of just smiling ominously where you'd be like, oh shit, Batista's about to kill that guy. He has a way of acting without doing much that all the really great actors have.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really predicted that he was going to become the movie star that he has.
No.
But I mean, he's a genuine star at this point. He's in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's in the Avengers. He's in James Bond. He's in Blade Runner. The only thing he hasn't gotten is, his own leading role, but that's just because he's hit it so big kind of as a secondary player in these huge franchises.
And he is kind of starting to get it. I think this year he's got 2 movies coming out where he's the lead guy.
Yeah.
Including one where it's he's a blind cop and his Uber driver has to help him with stuff that looks genuinely good. I cannot wait for that.
Ooh, Dave Batista, movie star. You wouldn't have thought that when he was born all the way back in 1969, which is always an interesting part of this story, that he's much older than it seems like he would be.
Way older. Just because he looked young as a 35-year-old. Don't get it twisted. You never heard his name before he was already an old man.
I mean, he was 30 before he took a bump. There's not a lot of precedent for that.
No, not at all. I mean, there's a couple of guys throughout history who have done it, but most of them are MMA guys or people who did something else first.
Yeah, as we'll get into, Batista was not a professional athlete before he got into wrestling. He was a professional ass kicker as a bouncer at bars in D.C. and an absolute legend.
I got to say right now is that I lived for a number of years in Washington, D.C., where Batista is genuinely a legendary figure. There's an IHOP that he goes to in Washington, D.C., where everyone there's oh yeah, Batista comes in here every time he comes into town. He sits at the same table and orders 500 pancakes and everyone just watches him eat them. He is a fucking legend.
When Batista comes to the IHOP to eat his pancakes, do you think he wears his leather vest and his leather pants, or his skinny jeans and his aviators, or his 3-piece suit? Which look do you think he goes with?
I think I think aviators and like vest and like spangled jeans, that's the real Batista. I think that's what he really looks like. I never got the pleasure of seeing him eat 500 pancakes myself. I've only met people who did.
His fashion sense is just one of those things that really just the insane way he dresses
Like
stands out.
I vividly remember when he came back in skinny jeans for his
Yes.
first comeback, and he like tore the ass out of them doing a power
Yeah.
bomb.
Yeah, he couldn't get up out of them. They were so tight.
But like, it kind of made me like skinny jeans more. Like, I wasn't like, haha, Batista sucks. It was like, he's making that work.
Wrestling in like tennis shoes and leg warmers.
Yep. Like,
Blue
some people in
t-shirt.
this world can just pull stuff off.
Yeah.
This is a man with a belly button tattoo, for fuck's sake.
So, like we said, he was a bouncer in DC. There's one incident where there was a big fight outside the club. Two fighting patrons ended up unconscious. He was arrested and charged, but ended up getting probation, which, I mean, probably saved his life. If he goes to prison there, he's probably never becoming a professional wrestler.
Oh, no, none of this happens if, like, it's not for a lot of freak circumstances that worked in his favor.
Yeah. So he gets probation, stops bouncing, gets into bodybuilding, which he would say saved his life. And it certainly set him up for becoming a mega star. I'm sure at some point in the gym, he ran into a wrestler who saw him and told him he should try pro wrestling, as so many of these stories seem to go.
It's actually kind of funny because Batista's backstory is basically the same as Kevin Nash's backstory.
Yeah.
Like, they were both just famous bouncers, like prolific dudes lifting weights in gyms, and like they have great personalities and they have that it quality, so people bring them in. And they never become good workers, but they become great personalities. Like, it's the same guy, except Nash starts sooner.
So he tries out for the WCW power plant and gets cut, which I find this part of the story insane when you think about some of the jabronis they were pumping out of the power plant at this point.
How fucking hilarious is it that they chose Chuck Palumbo over Batista?
Yeah. Chuck Palumbo, Sean O'Hare, Mike Sanders, Mark Jindrak, Johnny the Bull, those guys could all cut it at the power plant, but not fucking Batista. Good job, Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker. But this was very fortunate because if he goes to if he ends up in the power plant, like, he's going to get lost in the shuffle here. Like, WCW is tanking. He's going to end up like maybe getting his contract bought as part of the invasion and getting buried like everybody else from WCW.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you just look at like Christopher Daniels and AJ Styles, guys that were signed into WCW development towards the end and then never got a shot with a major company after that for years and years, because you just get tarnished with that.
Instead, he got set up with the Wild Samoans and signed by the WWF in 2000. They sent him to Ohio Valley Wrestling, which at the time was their developmental territory. Here, he's getting trained by Danny Davis, Rip Rogers, Jim Cornette. I mean, just the legendary Ohio Valley Wrestling crew. I think we've put him over before, but I think we got to do it again. Like, I still don't think NXT has surpassed Ohio Valley as like the top developmental territory of all time.
No. And in terms of this period, like 02 to 03,
legendary.
There's a stack of talent here that surpasses anything in any company ever. Like, it's not close. We're talking like Orton, Cena, Lesnar, like Shelton Benjamin, who didn't wind up going everywhere, but had potential to the fucking moon and back. You got Batista here. Most of these guys are just fucking hanging out. Like, there's nothing for them to do. Because, like, John Cena's not even a main eventer in this company until the very end before he gets called up. He's just a mid-carder doing promos.
Yeah, they had to push the Damaja instead.
Yeah, that's the thing. All of these legendary talents, many of the top grossing, most famous wrestlers ever to live. And Jim Cornette thought the Damaja was the bigger star.
And you know what? I bet he would still defend that to this day.
He does. He's like, he was money. Vince never got it.
They just ruined him shaving his head to make him look like Danny. So they gave Batista the character of Leviathan, which is a demonic creature that rises out of the Ohio River. Cornette said he saw Batista as a future opponent for The Undertaker, and I think the gimmick strongly suggests that that was what he had in mind at the time.
Yeah, and I mean, Cornette did a great job of protecting Batista because
Yeah.
Batista and OVW did not wrestle matches. What would happen is he'd come out every so often and just murder everyone in the ring and then just disappear. Like, that's awesome. Like, that's clearly being set up as sort of like OVW's Undertaker. Like, that's what it was.
Yeah. Leviathan, the guardian of the gates of hell, managed by Sin, who I believe is now Cornette's wife.
I don't know if they're still together, but was for a long time, yeah.
Yeah. Somebody's over when Cornette gives his wife to them.
Yes. And I mean, I think the main eventer in OVW always was managed by Sin.
Yeah. His first loss in OVW was to Kane when Kane came down to do an OVW shot. That was with the interference of Stone Cold Steve Austin, was how much they were protecting him.
You can actually go and see that show. It's one of the very few OVW shows that
it's on the network.
Sale. Yeah. Christmas Chaos. That's a hell of a show.
Christmas Chaos.
Yes.
He later won the OVW Heavyweight Championship, which he subsequently lost to the Prototype, aka John Cena.
John Cena.
Yeah. Their paths would cross a few more times over the years.
Fun fact, John Cena beat him by using an ether-soaked rag.
Just had to redo that finish from the Giant Gonzalez Undertaker match.
It's literally the same finish. That's not even a joke. It's the same finish.
We're trying to put over OVW and they just bury themselves.
Yeah, OVW is not something that you want to go sit down and like watch a bunch of old OVW shows because the shows suck. They were great at developing this young talent.
Yeah. It's just fun to see like all these guys playing different characters than they would ultimately become.
Fucking Shelton Benjamin and Brock Lesnar were a tag team where Shelton did the talking. Like, if they had come up to the main roster as that, imagine that.
They the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, Minnesota Stretching Crew.
Minnesota Stretching Crew, yeah.
And then into the spring of 2002, Batista gets the call, and he's brought up to WWE after the roster split. They got a bunch of room for new talents. They call up everybody. This is when they call up Lesnar, they call up Cena, they call up Batista, they call up Randy Orton. Now, with this surefire future star, they must have something good for him, right?
Is this the worst? No, okay,
It's down there.
Hyperbole, but like in terms of like the worst debuting characters anyone's ever been given,
it's worse than Rocky Maivia.
Yeah, Rocky Maivia was a good idea. It was just the wrong time. Like this, he's the guy who holds the money box for Devon.
Yeah, Reverend Devon.
And they've even admitted they didn't think was going to work.
So yeah, you've got Batista in like a suit with the sleeves cut off. And he's got a big metal box around his neck with a chain, and he hits people with it. And like that's their plan. Yeah.
And then like they get so like this doesn't even last very long because Reverend Devon doesn't last very long. This is a stupid, worthless gimmick.
Yeah, like I can't think off the top. You know who they should have put? Flair was the GM of Raw. They probably should have just made him Flair's bodyguard.
Which they do, like, immediately after.
Like, 2 months after this, they move him to Raw and pair him with Flair.
They're like, oh shit, we should have just given him to Flair.
Yeah, so by the end of the year, he moves to Raw. He gets, the original version of his, famous theme without the words, with just the badass guitar riff. And
I love that theme, by the way. Like, that's sort of a forgotten one because everyone, like, I Walk Alone is obviously iconic. But like this original theme is one of the scariest sounding themes I ever remember hearing. And like later on in his run, like right before they change it, when he's like actually a scary badass, like when that hits, it's like, oh, fuck.
I always thought he should have gone back to this theme as a heel because I think I Walk Alone is like too much of a banger to be a heel's theme.
Yeah, this is such like a terrifying heel theme.
So, his first pay-per-view match is against Kane at Armageddon 2002, and he wins. Raw is already treating him much better than SmackDown did.
Yes. Fuck yes.
So in January, we get the formation of what will become one of the great stables in wrestling history as Batista and Randy Orton are paired up with Ric Flair and Triple H to form Evolution. I think this is just what a perfect stable. Like, what a great idea.
And like all credit to Triple H, who I mean, you can bag on for a lot of things, but like this is purely his idea.
Yeah.
Like literally from start to finish. It's just like, what if we had a group where it's me and Flair,
And Mark Jindrak.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that he wanted Jindrak, not Orton.
That was a bit of a misfire.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess I can see it. Like Jindrak had a great body too.
Yeah.
But like, this is a perfect stable. Like you can argue whether or not they did everything that they could have done with it, or that they had really reached their full potential as a stable. You can absolutely argue that.
They made two megastars with this. Like,
yeah,
what more do you want? They ran Raw for years.
And it's not just that, but like Flair revitalizes his career with this. He main events multiple pay-per-views after this.
Yeah, Flair was done at this point. Like they had no idea what to do with them.
Everyone in this stable becomes a gigantic star.
Yeah.
Like that's as successful as you can possibly be.
And I can't think of how many times I came up in my head with how they could bring this stable back with now like Triple H having aged into the Flair role and Orton as the Triple H top guy, and then give him two new young guys to be in the stable with them.
I mean, they had that opportunity with Rollins, right?
Yeah.
Just give Rollins a big guy and another guy.
Yeah.
And they gave him Jamie Noble and Joey Mercury instead.
Yeah. That's a misfire.
Yeah, but even so, like this is a perfect stable. Batista's a complete afterthought in this. He's just a big dude. This stable is about putting over Randy Orton.
Yeah, Batista's just their enforcer.
But like, I'm not sure if it always would have been that way because Batista gets hurt like immediately.
Oh, right away. Both Batista and Orton get hurt right away. So this stable doesn't launch. Like, I always think of this as starting in the summer of 03, but they actually formed it in January. It's just both Batista and Orton immediately got hurt. So it ended up being just Flair and Triple H for a while.
Yeah, and then Orton comes back first, so they make it all about Orton and his Intercontinental title run. That's why, like, in your mind, you remember a lot of, like, Orton and Flair and Orton and Triple H, because Batista's still not back until October. Like, he's gone a long time.
Yeah, so the first thing I really remember them doing was in the summer, there was a Raw at Madison Square Garden where Mick Foley is getting an award for being like they presented him with the hardcore title. Right. And then like the original version of the Evolution theme didn't have lyrics. That comes on, they've got this awesome like blinding light entrance where like you can't even see them as they're coming out, you just see their silhouettes. Yeah. And they come out and they kick the shit out of Foley.
God, that was awesome.
End up like throwing him down a flight of stairs and like out of the building.
And then they just pose at the top of the stairs while Foley's like crumpled at the bottom.
Yeah.
Like, okay, look, like when you were watching, a lot of people who watched Evolution week to week hated it. But I mean,
because they were getting worked.
I mean, it was heel stuff, guys. Come on.
You were supposed to dislike them.
Yeah, they were in every segment. They were way too good for everybody. They wore the suits and et cetera, et cetera. Like it was just like Flair from the 80s across 4 different people. Like that's the genius of it. And it worked. God damn, it worked. There's so many iconic moments from this.
Yeah. So to back up, Batista tore his tricep in a house show match against Brock Lesnar. So those guys did actually wrestle each other, just never on TV.
Imagine you saw that house show match and you were like, boy, I bet these people will wrestle again, but they never do.
Yeah. That's like, we made a list of like the huge matches that never happened. That's pretty high on the list.
Damn sure is.
Batista is out while he's rehabbing. He re-tore the bicep or the tricep. I can't remember which one. I think it was the tricep this time. But yeah, this is a recurring theme of his career. He's always tearing a bicep or a tricep.
Steroids.
Yeah, those are not injuries you generally get if you have a natural physique.
Yeah, when muscles tear, it's generally because they aren't healthy muscles. Let's just make that perfectly clear.
So he's out until October. He makes an awesome return on one of my favorite episodes of Raw. Do you remember Triple H putting the bounty on Goldberg?
Yes, and then all night long, people are just trying to cash in, and Goldberg's killing everybody.
Yeah, and Jindrak and Cade have like their one cool moment where they go to talk to Orton about the bounty and how they can get it. And like Orton stupidly ends up revealing that he's got the briefcase full of money.
And then
So
they
Jindrak and Cade kick the shit out of him and steal the money.
it's the best moment. Like, I remember reading around that time that like Triple H really liked Jindrak, and like I thought that they were going to put over Jindrak and Cade huge. Like it seemed like they were going to get a push from this.
Well, as they're running out of the building with the money, Triple H shows up and smacks them both in the face with a 2x4.
Like
Surprised he didn't just use a shovel.
This is some cartoon shit, but I love it. Like that's just the idea of like the first two smart people in wrestling history be like, "Oh, you have the briefcase, eh?"
Yeah, so the main event on this night was Goldberg versus Shawn Michaels for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Wow, I'd never knew that match happened.
We get a couple minutes of a match here until Batista shows up out of the crowd and destroys them both and smashes Goldberg's ankle with the Pillmanizer to claim the bounty, and Evolution is whole once again.
And I just remember watching that show because, like, I get so into bounty storylines. Like, oh my god, who's it gonna be? Who's gonna steal the bounty? Who's gonna be? And just the idea that like Triple H pays it back to himself pissed me off so much.
This bounty thing definitely inspired by Ric Flair and Harley Race, but just absolutely perfect.
Oh god, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of this stuff. This Evolution, it's really the Four Horsemen. Like Batista's in the Lex Luger role. Like it's just a redo of stuff that worked before.
But it feels so fresh because it's been 20 fucking years.
Yeah.
And this audience has really never seen it.
For the rest of 03 and 04, Batista's Evolution's Enforcer. Him and Flair win the tag titles at Armageddon. I thought that was a savvy use of him to have him team with Flair. It protects him. He can watch and learn from Flair. All he's got to do is come in and hit a couple big power moves, and then he can tag back out to Rick and let Rick work the match.
And he said in a lot of interviews that like he came up still not having any idea how to work. And like Flair basically taught him on the fly how to be a professional wrestler. So like he gives all credit to Flair for his career.
At WrestleMania 20, he makes his WrestleMania debut as him and Orton and Flair team up against The Rock and Mick Foley. What an incredibly fun match that is.
And it was such a good match.
Oh, I love it.
The Rock coming back to help Mick, because basically the story of the first year of Evolution is just Mick Foley versus Evolution.
He gets his ass kicked over and over.
Just him getting like powerbombed through buffet tables and kicked down the stairs and thrown through walls until finally The Rock comes back to help, and then they get their asses kicked.
Yeah,
that's
they lose.
Batista and Orton destroy The Rock and Mick Foley in like the backstage segment, and then they have the match and they do it, and then Orton beats him again.
Yeah, Orton nails Foley with the RKO. I mean, that Orton Foley feud, so perfectly done to put Randy over. Just magnificent stuff from Mick. And
is Gewurz writing at this time?
Yeah.
Like, who should we be putting over for
It's that? Gewurz. Yeah, it's Brian Gewurz is the head writer on Raw at this point.
Because there's just so much great writing going on during this period. And most of it just revolves around this one group. Because there's also a lot of shitty writing going on during this period.
I suspect there's a lot of Triple H influence here.
And maybe this is where Triple H starts to get the trust of Vince enough that it's like, all right, this guy's going to run the company one day. Because like everything good is revolving around this group right now.
So Batista continues in Evolution for the rest of the year. At SummerSlam, Orton beats Benoit to win the World Heavyweight title. And then the next night on Raw, he's kicked out of Evolution in the kind of great moment where Batista's got him up on his shoulders and Triple H is giving him like a cheesy thumbs up, and then he turns stone-faced and goes thumbs down, and Batista drops him and they all kick the shit out of him.
I think we would remember that moment better had the Orton babyface run gone better. Like, because now we look at it just like, well, that's when they did that stupid ass turn.
Yeah, this Orton babyface run really ends up flopping. I mean, the plan was Orton is going to lose the title to Triple H, and then he's going to chase him all the way to WrestleMania, and at WrestleMania he can beat him and win the title. But he ends up bombing and they pull him out of the spot, and Orton's loss ends up being Batista's gain. To posit a conspiracy theory here, is it possible that Triple H by this point sees Batista as the better prospect than Orton and intentionally undermines Orton's booking?
I'm not sure it's that per se. This is right around the time where Orton is a huge dickhead,
Yeah.
starts to get around. And
Yeah.
maybe it's more that. Maybe it's more, oh, he's not really getting over as a face and he's a piece of shit.
Fuck that guy.
Maybe we slow down this role right here.
Yeah.
Also, but like when they turn face, they basically do the opposite of what they do with Batista, which is to say they make him way lamer than he was as a heel. Like they take the burn in My Light music is
Yeah. What a
so
heel theme.
yeah, it's just the shittiest theme ever.
I I mean, I like it as a heel's entrance theme,
Right.
but
But
yeah,
like
for a baby face,
it just doesn't work. And he's
no.
just not ready to cut promos on his own yet, and he doesn't know how to be a babyface because he's
Like
literally
he literally jumps out of a cake at one point, like just the
yes.
lamest stuff.
Yeah, if you've listened to our podcast many times before, this is some Diesel shit. Like
Yeah,
they ruin him.
yeah. Like in a month, he is so hot when he beats Benoit. Like crowd is 100% behind him against Benoit, and then like a month later, he's fucked. Did I lose you?
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, my internet just went out for like 10 seconds. Sorry.
Ooh. So with Orton bombing as a face, they need a replacement, and the replacement is Batista. I mean, when I look around the roster, the only other obvious option is Edge, and he hadn't really gotten over as a face, so they had turned him heel by this point. So Batista's kind of their only option. So they begin a very awesome slow burn storyline in the fall where, just subtly, we get these little looks from Batista. When Triple H and Flair do something shitty, Batista will just kind of give a disapproving look. Just little stuff like that keeps popping up.
Yes. And it's really the best because like Triple H and Flair start looking at him askance, like, are you really with us? But he's still coming, no matter what he says, he's still coming out, helping him, helping Triple H win. Batista never stops being for Evolution. And the brilliance of the storyline is that slowly Triple H and Flair fuck themselves over. Like that's the genius. It's just like they get so paranoid about Batista that they turn themselves on him, and then they get what they have coming to them.
So at the New Year's Revolution pay-per-view in January, you've got an elimination chamber match for the vacant world heavyweight title. Batista's in there with Triple H, Benoit, Edge, and Orton. Batista comes in and he's just absolutely dominating. This is like the hottest I had ever seen him to this point. And I don't have a particular explanation for it.
He had been getting like some pops. Like I remember like up until then, like he'd be giving like people looks and then like the crowd would just suddenly pop for it. Like, oh shit, Batista's gonna turn. Like, but there wasn't really like general crowd support. He was still getting booed in his matches. But he comes out here and he's wearing like these white trunks and he looks like $1,000,000 and he just tears everyone to shreds.
So the other
And
thing is this was in Puerto Rico, and like I don't actually know if Batista is Puerto Rican, but I
no,
feel like they
he's
build
Filipino.
him they build him as being from everywhere, so they may have built him as Puerto Rican for this.
Yeah, no, he's Filipino, but I think that they did pretty much promote him as just
Greek, Italian, whatever they needed him to be.
whatever brown suits where we are today.
Yeah, like so that may have been part of it too.
But yeah, he is outrageously over. And as he just smashes and smashes and smashes. And the idea is like Triple H is selling him on this idea that you're going to take out everybody and then it's going to be you versus me at the end. But it
Yeah,
doesn't
so
work out
Orton
that way
catches
because
Batista with
Triple
an
H is a
RKO,
dickhead.
and we can clearly see Triple H has the opportunity to break up this pin, and he goes to do it, and then he hesitates, and he lets Orton get the pin to get Batista out of the match.
Because we already know that Triple H is terrified of
Yeah,
Batista because
and he
he
should
knows.
be.
Because here's the conceit of Evolution. It always was. Is just at some point Triple H is going to move aside into the Flair role, and either Orton or Batista is going to take his spot. And it's Batista's time, and Triple H knows it, and he's not ready to move aside.
So in storyline, Triple H told Batista he shouldn't enter the Royal Rumble, and instead he should just focus on Triple H retaining the title against Orton. Batista disobeys him and enters the match. This is the infamous Royal Rumble I've been waiting to talk about for a very long time.
I love this match.
So it comes down to Cena and Batista. And Batista goes to powerbomb Cena, and they both fall backwards over the top rope and out of the ring to the floor. This was not supposed to happen.
Imagine how much effort Bret Hart put into
Yeah.
making sure he and Luger hit the floor at the same time. Now understand that somehow, by accident, it happens again.
Yeah. And it actually went better than most of the times when they've tried to do this.
Yeah, it's not like both their feet hit the floor, like their bodies hit the floor because they both accidentally go out. And it's like, what do you do in that situation? Like, oh shit, we fucked everything up.
Yeah.
Everyone saw it.
So you got a bunch of referees down there. I think Jimmy Corderas was the senior referee at this point. He knows Batista is supposed to be the winner, so he instinctively raises Batista's hand, which is probably the right thing to do in that situation. And then they stall for some time. So like both guys, then the other guy, the Cena gets his arm raised, and they play Cena's music too, and then they both throw each other out of the ring. Like they're stalling. Backstage, there's chaos. They're trying to find either Teddy Long or Eric Bischoff, who are the general managers of the shows at this point, to come out and like order a restart or something. They can't find either of them. Like I doubt either guy's in the building. There's no reason for them to be there at that point. Like both of their nights are over. So finally, Vince is just like, fuck it, I'll do it. And Vince storms out there, like takes his suit jacket off, slams it down, goes to slide into the ring and tears both of his quads in the process.
Vince McMahon has never, in the entire time he's been working for WWF, ever tried to slide headfirst into the ring. I don't know what the fuck possesses him to do it here, but he doesn't pick his knees up all the way, so they both slam into the ring apron and basically like slice apart his what's it called? Quads.
Yeah.
So he goes to stand up and just immediately falls to the ground.
Just
and now
crumples.
20 people in the ring are staring down at Vince McMahon as he tries, as from the ground, he's yelling at them. And it's surreal.
Somehow he doesn't seem to be in any pain as this is going on.
He sells nothing. He's just like yelling at them like, what do you guys think you're doing? Blah, 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 blah. Like he sells nothing. He tore 2 quads.
Yeah. When Triple H tore his quad, he finished the match, but it was obvious he was hurt.
Like Vince McMahon's a tough man.
So yeah, they like drag Vince out of the ring and get him like on a stretch. I don't know if they stretchered him out or if he like was carried out, but they get him out of there and they restart the match. And after like 10 seconds, Batista throws Cena out. Like, let's just wrap this up at this point.
Well, that's the thing too. It's like this is back in the day of actual pay-per-views. They're running out of time.
Yeah,
you can't just do another 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, they run over, they're going to get cut off, and they're fucked. Yeah, they're going to be refunding people. Like, it's going to be bad.
Now, if they had been smart, what you really should do here is just go off the air
Just, yeah,
unsure.
go off
And
the air with controversy and then do a match at No
exactly,
Way Out or whatever to determine who the number one contender is.
because this is so much more perfect. Because like Batista's the big guy, but both of these guys are super hot. Anyone would have believed that this was on purpose. Just go with it, you know?
So Batista has won the Royal Rumble in the weirdest fashion imaginable. I believe what was supposed to happen was I think they were supposed to like tumble back over the top rope, but Batista was supposed to catch the rope.
Right. And instead, there's just way too much momentum, and they just because Batista goes flying, like
This
he
looks like
lands
it
on
hurts. Like he, yeah, falls flat on his face.
yeah.
Oh, so then Batista, as the Royal Rumble winner, is given the choice of either challenging Triple H or JBL at WrestleMania. Triple H tries to manipulate Batista into facing JBL. He has a white limousine that looks like JBL's, try to run over Batista. That leads Batista to go to SmackDown and beat up JBL and smash up his limo, which includes a great character moment where Batista, after he's like done smashing the windows out, like stops and like straightens his tie, like in his reflection in the rear view mirror.
Yes. He's just so good at those small moments where you're just like, and so I think JR had a line on commentary around this time that always stuck out to me. It's just like, this is the thinking man's monster.
Yeah.
Like he's a monster, but he's not an idiot. Like he's not just all brains or no all brawn and no brains. Like he knows what he's doing. He's capable of planning. Like Triple H taught him too much, and now he's smarter than Triple H.
There's just all these little things with him that make him different. The fact that he's like, really suave and stylish and well dressed. He wears, nice sunglasses and nice suits instead of just being a big dumb meathead. And he's actually watched wrestling before and like
Yes,
understands when the heel is trying to pull one over on him.
that's the thing. It's like the greatest segment in his career up to this point was there's the scene where we watch like Triple H and Ric Flair talking about how they tried to run him over and how it's funny and how they're pulling one over on him, and the camera just pans out to Batista in the hallway, just listening to them, and then he smiles and walks off, and it's just like Batista fucking. It's like Batista saw on a monitor that was happening and then went and listened.
If anything, that would have been funnier if they just like cut to another part of the arena and he was watching the show on a monitor because it's on fucking TV. Or like it showed him getting a call from a friend who was like, "Hey, did you see what just happened? Triple H and Flair talking about you, man."
Like I would love it if they would just use that more. Just like, oh hey, I see you plotting about me secretly. I watched it on the monitor, dickheads.
You morons. So we get the incredible contract sign in where Batista is supposed to sign his SmackDown contract and go to SmackDown to face JBL. And Triple H gives him the thumbs up as he's about to sign the contract. And Batista gives him a thumbs up and then turns it to a thumbs down. And he takes out both Triple H and Flair and powerbombs Triple H through the table in the ring.
And this is how you do a well-told story.
Yeah.
The thumbs up and thumbs down is just recall straight back to the Orton thing. Just having like Triple H and Flair think their plan has been totally successful with big dumb grins on their face, and have Batista just do the same thing Triple H did. Just big smiles, stone face, thumbs down. And then, if you haven't watched the segment in a while, go back and look. It's a masterclass. The looks on Triple H and Flair's face when he gives them the thumbs down is the best part of this segment. Because they're just like, no! And then Batista kills them.
So if they had just done this exact storyline with Randy Orton instead of Batista, this would have worked, right? Orton would have become a monster babyface.
It would have worked, but I question whether it would have worked as well. Because Orton's never going to be the actor that Batista is. And that's so important in all of this. Like, if you do the same exact storyline with him, it still works. But I just don't think that, like, the thumbs down becomes an iconic mannerism like it did for Batista.
Yeah. So WrestleMania 21 goes down at the Staples Center. Batista wins the World Heavyweight Championship as he beats Triple H with the Batista Bomb. It's not a classic match, but considering kind of Batista's level of experience, a very good match.
Absolutely. And I think their Hell in a Cell match is underrated too. Like, I
Yeah.
like that match a lot.
This WrestleMania drew just like gangbusters. They crack 1 million buys for the first time since WrestleMania 17 and only the second time ever. So this outdrew Hogan versus Rock from 18.
Oh man, and like it's a great show. Like
It outdrew
it's
the previous. I mean, you think of the previous year's card with the triple threat with Benoit and Triple H and Michaels and the Undertaker going back to the Dead Man and Rock on the card and Eddie and Angle and Lesnar and Goldberg, and this show drew bigger without like any of those guys.
this is the first show that feels like it has new top stars on it.
Yeah,
Like you can like Cena and Batista are made. Like this is their show. And like the fucking buy rates say, yeah, keep pushing these guys.
yeah. And I love the symmetry of them being crowned at the same time. And we never quite got, I feel like, the defining match between them because they never quite pulled off the booking for it.
Yeah. I mean, it would have had to have been like a face versus face, big time WrestleMania deal. And Cena never really. This is unfortunately when we eventually do one of these about Cena again, like it's going to have to be about how Cena never gets a defining WrestleMania match except against The Rock. Like the rest of his WrestleManias are just wasted.
Yeah, they just don't click, and he gets put in a bunch of weird, like, triple threat matches, and other dumb stuff happens.
Yeah. Just for some reason, for like 10 years straight, like they just can't figure anything out for him.
And these days, he can't even get booked at WrestleMania.
I know, right?
Ooh, so Batista and Triple H kept feuding for a couple months. Batista won rematches at Backlash, and then again in a Hell in a Cell match at Vengeance. Like you, I'm a big fan of that match. Just bloody and brutal. And at the end, Batista is the last man standing, and it's clear that he has vanquished Triple H.
Including one of the best visuals I ever remember from a Triple H match, where Batista's got him up for the Batista bomb, and Triple H is rearing back with the sledgehammer, but he's just lost too much blood, and he can't quite, and then the power bomb. Done.
Boom. And from the home video, there's a really cool little segment backstage where like Triple H is like despondent and being stitched up, and Flair's consoling him. He's just like, look, man, he's a great champion. You know, he's in his prime. It's just his time now. And then Batista walks in and they kind of stare down. And they just kind of like shake hands, and he's like, it's over. They're like, it is. That's evolution.
And like that's so great. Like because that's the story of evolution, is that eventually Triple H is going to have to step aside, and he just can't bring himself to do it until Batista does it for him. That's the story.
It's the law of the jungle. The stronger animal came along.
A lot of people say that if they probably should have stretched it out for longer. They could have gotten more out of evolution than they did, and that might be true. But who cares?
I think everyone. Well, what they could have done is they could have had Orton be winning the title at WrestleMania 21, and that would have slowed Batista's run. Then Batista's probably not winning the world title until WrestleMania 22.
Yeah, and then like Triple H 6 Batista on Orton, and that's how you go from there.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Vengeance would be Batista's last pay-per-view of his Raw run as he gets drafted to SmackDown. Basically, they trade him and Cena. Cena moves to Raw, brings the WWE title to Raw. Batista goes to SmackDown with the World Heavyweight title. They had been deciding between Cena and Batista as who was going to be the top guy. And I'd say rightfully they went with Cena. He was just a better overall performer, I think more suited to the live show of Raw, whereas Batista could have needed that, safety net of SmackDown being taped.
Yeah, and I'd argue that it's actually good for Batista's career in the long run because SmackDown becomes Batista's show.
Oh, he's Mr. SmackDown.
And I don't ever feel like Raw feels that way for Cena. I don't know what it is, but like it just doesn't feel like his show ever. I guess because Triple H is still on it.
So over on SmackDown, Batista feuds with JBL for a couple months, and then he moves into a feud with Eddie Guerrero. This is when Guerrero is doing his super hot heel run, the Who's Your Poppy storyline with Rey Mysterio. We haven't gotten to cover this yet, but this is, in the long and great career of Eddie Guerrero, some of the best work he ever did.
God, yes. Oh my god! Like people justifiably shit on the ladder match, the custody papers on a pole ladder match,
Ridiculous storyline.
but the story surrounding it, where like Eddie just loses his mind.
So and he's making the jobber wear the Mysterio mask, and he's doing the promos where he comes out and he doesn't say one word and just lets the crowd boo him. I will contend, I think Batista learned a lot about being a heel from Eddie here.
Absolutely,
Very much shades of Eddie in Batista's later heel work.
but this is some genius Eddie work. Not to make this all about Eddie all of a sudden, but like this is. I don't know when we'll specifically get to talk about this. Probably not until we cover that stupid ass ladder match. But like this is some genius level work right here.
So I remember, this is totally random, but I remember thinking Eddie being this like sociopath who draws up secrets from people's past, I thought they were going to bring up the Batista like bouncing incident as part of this. That like Eddie's,
Oh,
this thought just struck me, and I remembered this the other day, and I think it actually would have worked well for the storyline and the character.
I think you're right. I think it would have.
Being like, but what the problem is, it's very Katie Vick, but it would have just been Eddie being like, Batista, you're a murderer.
You're a murderer.
Yeah, it's probably good that they didn't do that.
Yeah, it probably is.
So instead, it kind of became like Batista beats Eddie at No Mercy, and then they play it where Eddie becomes Batista's friend and turns back face. I don't know if this was supposed to stick. I assume he was going to turn on him.
Oh, it was absolutely leading to the turn.
Yeah.
And like I think if they were actually the way that they were setting it up, sort of seemed like it was going to be like Evolution again, where like he's going to turn on him, but Batista's going to be like, "Yeah, I knew you were going to do that, idiot."
Dumbass. Like he's going to try to hit him with his car, and it's going to turn out like Batista took the spark plugs out or something.
Yeah, like it's was 100% setting up like that. But unfortunately, we never got a resolution to that storyline.
Yeah, so of course Eddie's untimely death at the beginning of November cuts this short. Batista is hurt around this time, and he, I believe, was going to lose the title on that SmackDown, either to Eddie or Randy Orton, depending on who you believe. I think Stephanie has said Eddie was going to win the title, and other people have disputed that and said that, like, she was just saying that to make it kind of poetic. But in any case, Batista was about to take time off, but with Eddie dying, he decided to work through his injury instead.
Now, the really interesting thing that comes of this, of Eddie's death, in terms of Batista, is that the relationship between Batista and Rey Mysterio becomes a big, big thing.
Yes. This becomes one of the defining parts of his career is him and Rey.
Yeah, it almost seems random when it first starts because it's really just like Eddie's best friend and the top star are best friends now, but like they have a lot of chemistry as friends, like they're real life really close friends.
Yeah, and it's just Batista kind of the big brother taking care of the little guy.
Yeah, and like one of my favorite SmackDown matches ever is Batista and Mysterio against Eminem. Like that's one of the best ever.
It also makes no sense that Batista is older than Rey Mysterio, considering like their relative wrestling ages. Like
No.
Rey Mysterio was like a national wrestling star in like 1994 when Batista was still like bouncing in DC.
Yep.
I mean, I don't even know how old Rey is. What's Rey, like 40, 45
Yeah.
maybe?
And Batista's like, oh, what? Like
He's 50.
He's fucking 50, man.
Yeah. So yeah, Batista and Rey win the tag titles from Eminem. Well, they win the tag titles, then they lose them to Eminem, right? That's Eminem's debut match.
Actually, they lose to they beat him, and they don't lose the titles until they lose them to Big Show and Kane.
Yeah.
Oh no, they do beat him too.
Yeah, I think they flip the titles a lot in this time span.
Yeah, they do.
So Batista closes out 2005, leading SmackDown in an interpromotional rivalry against Raw. We'll cover this sometime. This has some great segments. These brawls and the invasions here, the best. I think the best they've ever done this Raw versus SmackDown storyline.
The fucking parking lot brawls and stuff.
Or Batista gets like choke slammed through a car by Triple A or by Big Show and Kane.
Just like these are some like Avenger style things.
Yeah.
They're just like squaring off, and then like Rey Mysterio is jumping off of cars onto people, and this is great.
And then as we enter 2006, we get a forgotten storyline where Melina accuses Batista of raping her.
Now, the idea of this is that comes from when Melina like willingly had sex with Batista to get her to stop killing Eminem or something like that. There was
Yeah,
a
something like
segment
that.
where she
Oh,
seduces
yeah, that
Batista.
happened.
Yeah. And then and then she's just like, "So you're gonna do that?" And Batista's like, "Nah," and then wanders off.
Yeah. So this storyline, she brings in Mark Henry as her like enforcer bodyguard, and this storyline is cut short because Batista has another torn tricep in a house show match against Henry, and he has to give up the world heavyweight title after a 280-day reign.
Man,
It's
and I don't.
a very
I
emotional moment when he. I mean, he got really good at giving this title up because he had to do it a lot.
Yeah, so many times Batista has to give the well. I guess I'm gonna have to leave you guys for a while.
Yeah. Oh, this was the first time as he came out in a turtleneck sweater under his suit.
Looking great. And I remember being genuinely emotional about it. Like, fuck, I've gotten really attached to Batista.
Yeah. What do you think he would have done at WrestleMania if he hadn't been hurt? I assume it would have been him and Orton,
I mean, I guess it would have had to have been. Like, those are the only things that really make sense.
unless he's going to put over Ray.
I think maybe they go that way because I think Ray is always the idea. Like, I think they from the moment stuff starts going on, like they know that it's going to be Ray.
So Batista's out until the summer. In July, he comes back to resume his feud with Mark Henry. But the match once again doesn't happen, as this time Henry tears his patella on an episode of Saturday Night's Main Event. And this match just never really happens.
Uh, like it's to the point where like if you told me like, hey, you want to watch Batista versus Mark Henry, I'd be like, ew, no. But if you like, they've made it for so long that I was like, can we just finally fucking see this match?
I was really ready for it because they kept hurting each other. Like,
Yeah.
man, it was going to be crazy. So instead, Ken Kennedy substitutes for Henry at the Great American Bash, and then Batista moves into a feud with King Booker for the World Heavyweight Championship.
We've now
Bringing
we've really reached the dark period of SmackDown right here.
yeah, also the dark period of Batista's career.
Yeah. Everything just kind of sucks.
So this leads to an infamous incident where while they're filming a commercial for SummerSlam, Batista and Booker get into a real fight during the shoot. This
And
is
Booker
covered in many shoot interviews.
and Booker whoops that ass.
Yeah, pretty much everybody says Booker kicked his ass. They had words. I've heard various rumored causes, whether it was an issue between Melina and Charmel, whether it was comments Batista made kind of disparaging SmackDown in comparison to Raw. I've heard when Batista showed up to the shoot, he shook hands with like Triple H and like Flair, but not Booker T. You know, those handshakes in wrestling are tricky.
They make some I've wrestling's really dumb sometimes, guys.
What fucking idiots.
I mean, come on, who gives a shit?
Emotionally stunted children.
Just the idea that, like, oh, he shook hands with his friends, but not with the other veterans. Like, come on, man.
So anyway, they get into it. Booker kicks the shit out of him. Booker gets dragged away. And then Charmel kicks Batista in the balls.
Which is my favorite part of that.
The really crazy part of this, I had thought this was a work because they actually reported this on WWE.com.
They show it on the show. I swear to God, like Booker brings it up or something.
This might be an invented memory, but yeah, like they handled it in a very like a way I wouldn't have expected them to at the time.
Yeah. So maybe it's like at least partially a work.
Yeah.
But
If this was a work, I mean, nobody's ever talked about it being a work. So
right.
maybe this was just a little bit of magic between, but like of all feuds, Batista and Booker T, like who the hell cares?
Especially like King Booker isn't
Yeah.
supposed to be a tough guy.
Yeah, Booker's not playing himself at this point. He's playing this ridiculous King Booker character.
Right. That guy's not supposed to be whooping Batista's ass.
No, that's the other thing is like if they're having a fight, like Batista's not supposed to be losing it.
Yeah, exactly.
So Batista chases the title for months. This will become a recurring theme of the coming years. He just keeps losing until he finally beats Booker to win the title at Survivor Series.
Yep.
These are some pretty shitty matches.
this whole year is basically just shitty matches. Like there's very little redeeming going on in this year.
Yeah, which makes it all the more surprising that Batista and The Undertaker steal the show at WrestleMania 23, but that is what happens.
Well, here's the thing too, is that like The Undertaker had sucked for a long time. And Batista had not been very good for a long time. So it's not just that it's like, oh, these two probably shouldn't have a good match together. It was these two are gonna stink up the fucking joint together.
They probably had a bit of a chip on their shoulder that they didn't get to go on last. They end up outperforming Cena and Michaels. Like this was the match of the night.
Yeah, which arguably is why they go on to do Cena Michaels on Raw, so Michaels can one up that match.
Yeah,
and results in
60 minutes to do it.
And really, it results in like two of the best fucking matches that I swear to God is just because Undertaker and Michaels are petty about each other.
Yeah.
Undertaker's like, oh, you're not going to fucking show me up. And then Michaels is like, oh, yes, I am.
But yeah, I love this match. Batista is the star of this match too, is the other thing. He starts the match with a huge spear. He power slams Undertaker through the announce table. He hits a flying clothesline off the top rope. He hits Taker with a Batista bomb with stank on it, like the best one I've ever seen. And it looks like he's got him pinned, but Taker gets out. Taker, of course, ends up winning the match to continue his undefeated streak. This is like a whole new Batista. This revived him.
Is this like the first Undertaker match to this point, at WrestleMania at least, where it feels like somebody might beat Taker, not in a sneaky way, but just beat him?
Or Orton at 21.
Yeah, but I feel like even with Orton, it was kind of like, he's going to have to cheat to do it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when Orton reversed the choke slam into the RKO.
Right. But here, it's just like, Batista whoops his ass.
Yeah.
Like, the Undertaker's lucky to get out with the title.
Yeah. An absolutely great match, and this rivalry would continue. And I feel like these guys killed it every time they got in the ring together.
They just have great physical chemistry. Like, the Undertaker's tough enough that Batista doesn't have to go soft on him, and Batista just, for some reason, with some people, he would always seem super tentative with them, and then some people, he just bulldoze them. And I don't know why some people were like that and some people were the other way. But whenever he would just bulldoze guys, it looked great. Like, he would just channel fucking Goldberg.
The rivalry would continue. They fought to a draw in a last man standing match at Backlash, and then they had another draw in a steel cage match on SmackDown. The problem is, by this point, Undertaker is injured and needs time off. So after the cage match, Taker gets attacked by Mark Henry, and Edge cashes in the Money in the Bank briefcase to become the new World Heavyweight Champion.
Which is an awesome, awesome segment.
Yeah. Yeah, just Henry demolishing Undertaker, and then Edge coming out. And even JBL, the heel announcer, being like, no, not like this. Not now, Edge. Come on.
And this is the beginning of Edge's time, which is a story for kind of another day. But like Edge and Batista as the two top stars of SmackDown is a great era.
Yeah, this is SmackDown kind of coming back into its own.
Yeah.
So we now get a never-ending slog of Batista challenging for the world title and losing.
Yeah.
Comes up short twice against Edge on pay-per-views. And then Edge gets hurt and has to forfeit the title, which, again, will be a running theme of this podcast because it happened a lot in this era.
This belt is cursed.
Yeah. Just everybody who got this thing got hurt and had to give it up.
And it's just unfortunate that like Batista, Edge, and Taker are all unfortunately very injury prone.
Yeah.
And that's who this whole show is built around. And they don't have anybody else other than them. So it's just kind of
So the title is vacated. They need a new champion. And for some insane reason, instead of just putting it on fucking Batista, they have the Great Khali win it in a battle royal.
And you could tell when they did it that they were like patting themselves on the back, like, we built a new star. And it sucked.
The Great Khali is the world champion. And like, this is after he's like lost all his matches and lost his heat. Like, Taker's beating him, Cena's beating him. It'd be one thing if he just came in and like after he demolished Taker and pinned him with his foot, if they'd put the belt on him back then. But by this point, nobody cares.
I mean, that probably like should have been for the title. It's just like, put it on him right then and there. Who the fuck is this monster? Oh shit, he's the champion. But
Yeah.
no, now it's just like, gross. Though it does lead to one of Batista's greatest moments, I believe.
So Batista gets a bunch of shots at Kali and keeps losing. At one point, he has had 8 straight title matches. He either like lost or like won by DQ or count out and didn't win the title.
Yeah, and literally nobody's pinned him this whole time. It's just constant fuck jobs.
Yeah, like it's getting real boring by this point.
Absolutely.
He finally wins back the belt at Unforgiven in a triple threat match against Kali and Rey Mysterio. And then the next month, he successfully defends the belt against Kali at No Mercy in a Punjabi prison match that was shockingly good.
Let's be clear. Everyone always talks about how John Cena pulled a good match out of the Great Khali. That match is fine. This match is a miracle. But Batista's a high flyer in this match, Steve.
The thing he does where he jumps from the inner cage to the outer cage and like catches a rope or something. How cool was that?
Yes, it's madness.
I can't believe he tried that. That's insane.
Like, he's bumping everywhere for Khali. Like, he's like trying to slide out of place. Like, you would think that he was Rey Mysterio, like in this match. That's how he's working it. And then he does that super dramatic leap for the win. And it's like, what the fuck?
It's some Indiana Jones shit. The only thing missing is a giant boulder.
I can't believe he pulled it off. He's fucking 300 pounds.
How did his entire body not explode when he did that?
How does he not like break the rungs off and go falling to the ground?
Well, part of it is I always assumed that cage was wood, but it's actually steel painted to look like wood.
You know, it's done well then, because it does look like wood.
Yeah. This Punjabi prison is the most ridiculous and like stupid and like I love it, but like what a ridiculous, insane gimmick. And like who the hell knows what the rules are?
And like there's like
the
gates
doors
sometimes
and like they open. It's like I don't remember. Do you ask to open them or they just open at intervals? Like,
and then you get out, but that's not really the point. And then like
what a ridiculous match. And yet when they brought it back for Jinder and Orton, I popped.
Huge. And then
when Khali came out, that was the greatest thing that had happened.
I couldn't believe that they couldn't do more with Jinder after that, because I popped hard for that match.
I mean, the problem was they didn't actually have Khali. That was his only appearance, right? That was it.
Yeah, if they had given Khali to Jinder, I feel like
Khali in Jinder's corner as his bodyguard. I think he actually might have been able to make Jinder work.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so after surviving the Punjabi prison, Batista renewed his rivalry with The Undertaker, who had returned from injury. Batista beat The Undertaker with the Batista bomb at Cyber Sunday to retain the title. Steve Austin was the referee in that match. And then the next month, they would clash again at Survivor Series in a Hell in a Cell match. This time, Batista again wins when Edge returns, having disguised himself as a cameraman, and takes out both guys with a chair and then puts Batista on top of Undertaker.
God, I love Edge during this period so much.
This
Edge is my favorite wrestling character ever.
It's a great Hell in a Cell match, too.
Yeah, this one's totally forgotten, but like it's really good.
The next month at Armageddon, Batista loses the title to Edge in a triple threat match, which also involves The Undertaker. This is mostly notable for the debut of Hawkins and Ryder as the Edge heads.
Awesome.
And they do. There's a thing in this match where like Taker's got Batista, or I think it's Edge. He's gotten the triangle choke, and one of the Edge heads rings the bell to get Taker to break the hold, even though he didn't tap out.
Which is fucking great.
That's genius, yeah.
They just kept coming up with stuff like this for Edge around this time. I assume that Edge himself was coming up with it.
Probably. I mean, I think there's also, like, I assume they were going to fire Hawkins and Ryder. This is when they had been the Major Brothers, and Vince found out they weren't actually brothers.
And then he hated that shit.
Yeah. So
no fake brothers.
I don't know when that became a rule, but yeah. So, I feel like Edge just like notices that they look just like him, and now they've been with the company for like 15 years.
Oh yeah, they're lifers. Like Zack Ryder is a lifer now. He's gonna be like he's like the hardcore Holly of this era.
Next couple months for Batista are pretty uneventful. He fails to win the Royal Rumble, although that's that awesome Royal Rumble that we talked about that comes down to him and Cena and Triple H. So that was a pretty good moment for him.
Hell yeah.
He gets pinned by The Undertaker in an Elimination Chamber match at No Way Out. And then at WrestleMania, he has a very forgettable match with Umaga. He was just kind of the odd man out at that great WrestleMania.
It's a pretty good match. I mean, it's not great or anything, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's just not the not the match you'd think he would have, but he just didn't really fit in anywhere on that card.
Yeah.
But things pick up after WrestleMania because he gets put in a feud with Shawn Michaels.
Yes.
This is great, although it ends up getting spun off into the Michaels Jericho feud, which is always something interesting to me. But we start off with Shawn Michaels just like walking to the ring on Raw the next night, and out from behind the corner steps Batista in like a leather vest and leather pants with sunglasses on and like heavy stubble, like looking like he's been out all night. And it's just like, well, fuck. Sean's gonna die.
This is the template for heel Batista that he
Yeah.
always goes back to. Just the most hateable man who ever lived.
Just that look. I mean, again, going back to how simple little things Batista could do that would be so great. Just this look he gives Sean here.
Like, here's the good thing about Batista. It's because Batista is one of the few performers in the history of WWE who could be a chicken shit, but also be like genuinely intimidating. And as a heel, he would do that. But like here, he's like full rage on Shawn Michaels. And like Shawn doesn't see it coming at all.
Yeah, he's just furious with Sean. Sean is the selfish asshole who retired Ric Flair, like had to steal all the glory for himself. Is this rational? Not really, but grief and loss makes people do irrational things.
And not to toot this horn yet a fucking again, but like this great storyline is responsible entirely from the relationship on screen that we understand between Ric Flair and Batista. That gives Batista a great reason to get into a program with Shawn Michaels. What more do you need?
So Sean and Batista have a match with Backlash. At Backlash, Chris Jericho is thrown in there as the special referee. Sean wins this after he like slips out of the Batista bomb, pretends like he's blown his knee out, and then pops up and hits Batista with sweet chin music, which I just love that it adds even more like fuel to Batista's fire.
Yeah. And then like obviously like maybe there'll be another time we'll go in more detail about the whole Chris Jericho part of this. But the genius of being a special guest referee and taking it super personally that a guy cheated while you were the referee is like the genius of that storyline to me. Is that it starts off so innocently, like, why would you lie to me? Why would you cheat like that?
Do you think the original plan was to get to Sean and Jericho? Or
I don't think it was.
I feel like that just sort of emerged kind of organically. Like Jericho saw something hot going on and got himself in the middle of it like he always does.
Yeah, I mean, he may have, because that storyline was like a breath of fresh air.
Oh,
like
so much better.
People forget about the Batista part of this, but like that Batista Michaels match was the only interesting part of that card. Coming out of WrestleMania, there just wasn't that much going on. But like this version of Batista, this angry version of Batista was interesting.
He should have just stayed heel. Like, I don't understand why he ended up turning face again at the end of this.
I guess their point, like they tried to make it clear that he wasn't a heel. Like he was just mad.
Yeah.
Which only really Batista can pull off.
So Batista and Sean have a stretcher match at One Night Stand where Batista just murders Sean. And
it
like
is not close.
Jericho keeps like coming out to like cheer on Sean, be like, no, come on, Sean, you can do it. And Sean just keeps getting killed. Like, ends with him either getting power bombed or spine busted on the steps. As Batista tells him, I'm not sorry and I don't love you.
That's one of the greatest moments I've ever seen.
Yeah. And then it just splatters him on the steps.
Just those little things that only Batista would think to do.
Yeah. And then Batista gets drafted back to Raw. At SummerSlam, he is booked to face John Cena in a dream match that kind of just comes about for no reason. This is when Mike Adamle has been made the general manager of Raw, and the storyline is that he's incompetent and booked this match without sufficient time to promote it.
What a fucking dumb storyline.
I Yeah, like this is like a WrestleMania main event, and like they do it at the SummerSlam with like 3 weeks build.
This is like one of they just did this with like Cena and Reigns a couple of
Yeah,
years ago too.
very
Which is like,
similar to Cena and Reigns,
yeah,
except like this didn't have the hot fire shoot promo that Cena Reigns did.
yeah. It's just like, yeah, fuck, we're in the middle of the summer. Let's just do our biggest possible match.
Yeah, we need something hot for SummerSlam. Let's do Cena Batista.
At least it was SummerSlam. Like fucking Cena Reigns was at like Unforgiven.
Yeah. Batista won that with the Batista bomb, and both guys got hurt in the match.
Of course.
Yeah. Cena hurt his neck. Batista hurt his hamstring and worked through it for a couple months, but ends up going on the shelf at the end of the year. But first, at Cyber Sunday, Batista beats Chris Jericho to win the World Heavyweight Championship. I think, again, with Steve Austin as the referee here. He would always win those polls.
Oh, nobody else was even. But he only has it for 8 days.
Yes, he loses the belt back to Jericho in a steel cage match. This is most notable because this is where Batista blades against company policy and is fined an absurd amount of money by Vince. I think it's like $250,000 or something like that.
And isn't this the part where like it was both of their fault, but Batista's like, I don't give a shit.
Batista just owned it. Yeah.
Yeah, I did it. Whatever. Charge me. Who cares?
250 grand? Like,
that's like, just think about like football players. Like,
yeah.
People who have like beaten women in public get like 100,000.
Yeah, like you hit somebody like with a dirty helmet to helmet hit that almost kills them in football, and it's like $10,000.
Yes.
Also, think of the shitty things people do in WWE, and like nothing happens to them, or they get a tiny fine. $250,000. It's just totally arbitrary.
It's just like a massive overreaction. And I feel like it's just a response by Vince to Batista being like, yeah, I don't give a fuck. Charge me whatever you want.
Yeah. Like, but this is kind of, I think, the beginning of the end of Batista in WWE. He's, been around a while, getting kind of burnt out. He said he was not happy with the movement towards a more family-friendly product. That's not what he believes in. And this incident, I can understand how this would sour him.
Yeah. I mean, this is the beginning of some complicated issues between him and the company, too.
It gets real weird.
And it never really stops being weird.
Batista returns. So he wraps up the year feuding with Randy Orton, and then he takes time off to heal a hamstring injury. He's gone for a couple months and shows up the night after WrestleMania to renew his feud with Orton. First, they have a 6-man tag team match at Backlash where Batista and Triple H and Shane McMahon team up against the Legacy, Orton and DiBiase and Cody Rhodes. And the world title is on the line in this match. So Orton wins the title by getting the pin here.
That's a damn good match.
Yeah. And then in a hilarious moment after the match, like they're doing a stretcher job for Triple H, and the crowd just shits on him and sings the Hey, Hey, Goodbye song.
Yep, because nobody thinks he's a face.
This happened to Triple H so many times in his career where they were trying to do like the emotional send-off and the crowd just took a shit on him.
Well, especially like this is the decade of everyone in real life hates Triple H.
Yeah.
It wasn't until NXT that everyone came around.
So the Batista Orton feud culminates at Extreme Rules, where Batista beats Orton in a cage match to win the title, just squashes him in like 5 minutes. But it turns out the reason, I think he was injured coming into this match, and that's why it was so short. I don't think he got hurt in this match.
Yeah, he was already hurt.
So despite him being hurt, they put the belt on him anyway, and then have him forfeited on Raw the next night.
They just love those speeches.
They love Batista forfeiting the world title. So he's gone for a couple months, He returns in September with like his arm in a sling, and it looks like he's announcing his retirement. And Orton comes out to talk some shit to him, and then Batista reveals that his arm is actually fine, and he takes out Orton.
Great moment.
Yes.
Fucking love that segment.
Again, Batista, the smartest man in pro wrestling.
He's seen wrestling before, knows heels always fall for that.
He then moves back to SmackDown, where he forms a tag team with Rey Mysterio, but that doesn't last as he turns on Mysterio and tells him he's going to rip his head off. And
Okay.
he did.
This is the part I've been saving this through all the great storylines that we've talked about, but I want to paint a word picture now. This is my favorite Batista segment ever. And it happens immediately after the Fatal 4-Way, where the idea of the Fatal 4-Way is that Batista has, I don't even remember who he has beat. Like he has somebody beat for the title. And Mysterio runs in and breaks it up. And then Batista breaks up Mysterio's pin. And then whoever the fourth, somebody else, I think it was like Punk or somebody, wins the title and neither one of them win. And then after the match, Rey's in the ring and he's like trying to comfort Batista. Batista stands up and he puts his arm around him and he just says, and like literally just Mysterio over and over being like, I'm sorry, big man, we'll get him next time. And he just tells Rey like, I'm going to rip your head off. And Mysterio's just like, no, dude. And just like the look on Batista's face is just like so friendly and like, hey, buddy. And then it goes stone cold. And then he gives Rey Mysterio the stiffest fucking clothesline I've ever seen in my life. Like Rey just goes like toppling through the air. And then Batista like kicks him in the face, like hard, running kicks in the face, like 5 times. And then he gets him, he's outside the ring and he's holding him up against the ring apron and he's literally choking him. And you can hear like Rey like squeaking, being like, don't do this. And Batista just looks at him dead in his face and said, you were supposed to be my friend. And then just throws him headfirst into the fucking the barricade. And all of this is done with an intensity that is totally unlike anything I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like it is off the fucking charts. And like just listening to Rey like literally beg for his life as Batista's choking him to death is like deeply intense.
And then like a week later, Rey and they do a promo where Rey's trying to convince him like to come back to the good side. And he's like, come on, man, think of Eddie. And Batista just goes, Eddie's dead.
Man. That's some heel shit.
Somehow this worked for me in a way that like Orton bringing up Eddie didn't. I think it was because a couple of years had passed at this point.
Well, it's also because Batista had a relationship with Eddie. So it's not with Orton, it was just him trying to be a dick to Rey. But in this one, it's just like, hey man, remember our best friend. Let's not throw that away. And Batista being like,
yeah, he fucking died.
Fuck Eddie, he's dead. This is about me.
Yeah.
And literally, like, Rey's like, I'll forgive it all, man. That's how much our friendship means to me. And Batista's like, I'm not thinking about you. I'm thinking about me.
Yeah.
You were supposed to be my friend.
After all these years, he's finally in the spotlight.
Yeah, this is about me. And then they have a match where Batista fucking kills him.
He murders him in like 5 minutes.
And literally, like, he makes Rey sign like a contract saying that he won't sue no matter what Batista does to him. And Rey's like, okay, LOL, I'll beat you. But no, Batista hurts Rey.
Yeah. Was this a referee stoppage?
Oh, fuck. I wish I could remember.
I don't think he pinned him here. I think the referee stopped the match because he was just killing him and wouldn't pin him.
Fucking hell. Like, it's just so good. Oh, it is a stoppage. Yeah. 3 Batista bombs in a row.
Then he renews his rivalry with The Undertaker and loses a chairs match at TLC in December for the World Heavyweight title. Then going into 2010, at the Royal Rumble, he's involved in a great moment where Shawn Michaels is desperate to win the Royal Rumble to get his rematch with The Undertaker at WrestleMania, and it's Batista who manages to eliminate him.
Yes, just by like grabbing his hands and shoving him off.
Yeah, just like Shawn is like clinging to the ropes and Batista just like slaps his hands away and pushes him off the apron.
Hey, that's also one of my favorite storylines of all time.
Yeah, we're covering a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, we'll get to that at another time.
But yeah, we get that great moment there where Sean is just like despondent and like trying to get back in the ring, and the refs won't let him. And he ends up like super kicking the referees. It's like somebody showing up like drunk at a funeral, and like that hush that like falls over the crowd. Like, this is what that is.
Yeah. And like the whole crowd goes silent because like Shawn doesn't do that. What's happening? This is like dad Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. Ooh. So Batista fails to win the Royal Rumble there as Edge wins it in a surprise return. So Batista instead forms an alliance with Vince McMahon and beats up Bret Hart in
Yep.
exchange for being gifted the WWE Championship. I mean, it's not much of a beating because Bret can't take any bumps, so he just kind of hits him with a bunch of knee lifts.
But that how great is that? It's just
Yeah.
like and then he does like literally the exact same thing that Edge did when he won the first Money in the Bank. Like wait for Cena to go through Elimination Chamber, and then here comes Batista.
Yeah. So yeah, Batista beats Cena in the impromptu match at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, and he's the WWE champion. And then the next night on Raw, like they give Cena a match against Batista, and it's like, oh, if Cena wins, he gets to face Batista at WrestleMania. And Batista just kicks him in the nuts and gets disqualified and is like, I want you at WrestleMania.
Again, Batista is the only smart person that exists. And this is the month, the magical month of Hollywood Batista, where
Yeah.
he is maybe the greatest heel of all time. This is the one where he's like got the spotlight on him in the ring,
The
and
diamond stud earring.
he just like yelled, like literally just like owning members of the crowd one after another. Just just killing it hard every night because he knows he's leaving. Like
Yeah.
he's just like, I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, this is so great.
It's one of my favorite characters of all time. It's like this Hollywood Batista, the perfect encapsulation of a heel.
Yeah.
Just like a guy you wish you could like, but you can't because fuck him.
It really is kind of a shame he was a face for so much of his career, and he was a good face, but he's one of the best heels ever.
This heel character here could have gone for 5 years as the top guy. Like this is top shit.
And everybody loves Hollywood Rock, but like Hollywood Batista had way more heat than like Hollywood Rock was still liked by the crowd.
Hollywood Rock is a baby face. Let me just be perfectly clear about this. Hollywood Rock was a terrible heel. Hollywood Rock, the only person who got over facing him was the Hurricane, but it's only because they did funny backstage segments together. Beating Hollywood Rock didn't mean anything. Hollywood Rock didn't do Goldberg any favors.
No,
Sure
as shit didn't.
Hollywood Rock. He was too entertaining. Hollywood Batista was not. He was entertaining, but more than that, he was annoying, and just the perfect encapsulation of a douchebag.
So WrestleMania 26, Batista and Cena got into it for the WWE Championship. They had a pretty good match. It ends with Batista tapping out to the STF. I did not like that finish. I really would have liked to see Batista kind of be Cena's kryptonite.
Yes. Especially since they were just going to have another match anyway. If that had been the last one, I get it, but
They just had this weird thing with Cena where he would always beat guys the first time he faced them. And like usually he would tap them out with the STF, and it's just like, why the fuck are we gonna have a rematch? Like,
and then they would do like 3 rematches, and the heel would win like 1. It'd be like Cena taps you out, you win the rematch, then Cena beats you twice. Like, what the fuck? How are you supposed to come out of that with any heat?
So yeah, they have a rematch at Extreme Rules where Batista loses a last man standing match to Cena when Cena tapes his feet to the ropes to keep him from standing up. How brilliant was that?
A lot of people hated that finish at the time. I thought it was one of the most brilliant finishes I had ever seen.
I popped hard for that. And then the next night on Raw, Batista comes out and he's just like, last night was the most embarrassing night of John Cena's career. And he stops and he's like, let me say that again. Last night was the most embarrassing night of John Cena's career. So at Over the Limit, they have an I Quit match. This time, Batista quits when Cena has him up on top of a car and is going to AA him like off the car through the stage. So Batista gives up, but Cena does it anyway and puts him through the stage.
One of those few cool John Cena moments where he's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, but fuck you. You're
Yeah.
done.
Batista deserved it. So the next night on Raw, he comes out in a wheelchair and a neck brace and like his arm in a sling, like just the whole thing, everything at once.
Now, let me be perfectly clear. I was at this show. This is the first Raw I had been to since like 2001. And like they just so happened to be in my town, and I went to this, and it was just some random show leading up to Fatal 4-Way. Like it wasn't like a real show. And like literally like Batista in the ring whining, and like there were like commercial breaks in between him whining that he just went on whine like for like 10 straight minutes, and the crowd was just getting louder and louder and louder. And finally he does like the, you guys want me to quit? Yeah. You guys want me to quit? Yeah. Fine, I quit. And then he actually quit.
Yeah. And he's gone.
And like unthinkable that like of all the millions of times a heel has been like, you guys want me to quit? Well, I won't. This one time a guy's just like, you know what? All right, fine. I quit. I'm gone. And he actually is. Genius. Just the perfect way to go out.
So yeah, I mean, at this point, he's missed a lot of time with injuries, but I think that's part of you're doing this, you're not really thrilled with it anyway, and you keep getting hurt. Probably a good time to walk away and try some other things.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Um, you know, he's interested in acting. He tries MMA and has the most ridiculous MMA fight in history.
It is a joke.
A sham. He fights some fat dude who looks like a plumber, and like the guy actually shows him up for most of the fight, and then I think this fight might have been rigged.
It's amazing to me that CM Punk saw this and still went on with what he did, because it's the same story. Legitimate tough guy, like spend some time learning MMA, but like you can't learn how to be a pro MMA fighter in 3 years. It's not possible.
Yeah, and like Batista's way bigger than CM Punk. Like,
yeah,
way bigger and more powerful.
It just, I don't know how he thought this was going to, but like, it's not even that embarrassing for Batista because, all right, he tried it, whatever. Apparently he really loves jiu-jitsu. Like he does it constantly. Yeah. There are all sorts of stories around of like people like bumping into him and he's been like, hey, you want to talk about jiu-jitsu? Blah, 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 jiu-jitsu.
So it takes him a while to kind of break through in acting. He gets some TV spots. He was in Smallville. He was on an episode of Chuck. Got some like direct-to-video releases. He was in a Kickboxer movie. He's the villain in the remake of Kickboxer.
Yeah, hell yeah. He was in that movie made by RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan, like The Man with the Iron Fists or something.
Yeah.
That was a good movie.
And then I'm trying, I guess his breakthrough is Guardians of the Galaxy. He gets cast as Drax, and now this is not a movie podcast, but he's amazing as Drax.
Oh, he's just, you can't see anyone else playing that role. Like, it's just so perfectly him.
So incredibly funny in that role.
Like, to the extent where, like, when they wanted to change directors, he literally was like, I'll just fucking quit then. And they were like, oh, I guess we'll bring him back then.
Which is a very Batista move.
That's the thing, is that is so authentically Batista. Like, Batista, in the years since then, has become, like, a low-key hero of mine. Like, Batista has, like, 2 mothers. Like, he was born to lesbian parents. And, like, literally, like, has been, like, a super huge ally for the LGBT community, super big ally for, like, Filipino people. Like, he's just been a genuinely great guy. And, like, if he's on your side, he'll just come in somebody's mentions and be like, fuck you, I'll kill you.
I just have such an appreciation for people who won't let anybody fuck with them.
Yeah. And who are just so authentically themselves.
And like it's like, oh, I'm going to lose millions of dollars if I quit. Yeah, sure, I'll still do it. Don't want to compromise my principles.
There's not one single second where you don't feel like Batista's doing what he wants to be doing.
Yeah.
And like that's such an admirable quality. In the same way that basically he and Kevin Nash are the same in the end in a lot of ways. Like they just did what they wanted and it worked for them.
So after Guardians has finished filming, but before it comes out, he makes a deal to come back to WWE. And we can kind of speed through this because I feel like we covered really this whole run in our Royal Rumble 2015 episode. But he comes back on Raw, gets a huge pop, pops a big rating. It's pretty clear that he's going to win the Royal Rumble. This is the infamous Royal Rumble that Daniel Bryan is not in. Goes poorly, crowd turns on him, boos him out of the house as he wins the Rumble. As he's leaving the ring that night, he does the Daniel Bryan yes chant, but with his middle fingers to the crowd.
What a fucking perfect heel.
That's the thing about it, is like, yeah, he was always going to get a pop when he came back, but he always should have immediately turned heel.
Yes. Like, he was born to be a heel, especially in front of that audience at that time.
Yeah. Like, should have come out, done the machine gun entrance like a babyface, but then as soon as he got in the ring, he should have motioned for the spotlight and the lights should have gone down.
Yep.
So he turns heel at WrestleMania 30. He loses the triple threat match when Daniel Bryan taps him out to the yes lock. Good on him for putting Bryan over. And he said, he didn't like the fans, kind of reaction to him, but he was happy to put Bryan over there.
And what you've got to say about Batista is that Batista was never afraid to put people over once he was on top. Like, he did chops a lot.
I mean, we went over how many consecutive title matches he lost.
He just never won. Yeah, but Edge beat him like 8 times.
Yeah.
After like 2006, I swear he never won another match.
And we got the awesome moment on Raw where Evolution reforms and they murder the Shield. I love that. I love the Evolution versus Shield matches. They were amazing. And they put the Shield over so strong.
Yes. And then all anyone could talk about after that was Blue Tista because he wore blue. And he made that like a recurring joke on the fans.
Yeah. And then Batista got sick of this shit and he quit, both in storyline and in real life.
Yep.
I assume he was always going to take some time away because he had to go promote Guardians, but he never came back.
Yeah, I don't know if it was messy the way that he leaves here. Like maybe there was some miscommunication about what was going to happen, or if he really was unhappy.
He did a podcast at some point, and he talked about it where he said, like, when he was talking to them about like promoting Guardians of the Galaxy, he just like he said Triple H's reaction was literally like, well, I don't know, we'll see. Like, we don't even know if the movie is going to be any good.
Oh.
And it's just like the tone deafness of like, these people don't know that like by 2015 Marvel's money. Like everybody knows Marvel movies are going to get over.
And just like WWE could have had a piece of part of one of the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
And they just fucking pissed on it. Like, how stupid is that?
This company that's so desperate for pop culture attention, for relevance and to cross over, but like if you do it on your own, they don't like it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they don't like things that they don't get to control.
Ugh, gross.
So, I mean, in the end, so he leaves, and they call him in 2016 to try to get him to do WrestleMania 32 when, like, the entire roster is hurt and they desperately need somebody to fill in. He turned him down. And then we always heard, I feel like in a bunch of interviews, he always said he wanted to work with Triple H one last time. And I think that is kind of what led to the reconciliation here. Again, relationships really matter, don't they?
Yeah, they really fucking do. And like, this is, in retrospect, I didn't realize when he came back here that this was going to be his retirement match. But now that that's clear, yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense that they would have buried the hatchet for this, especially since Triple H got to go over.
House always wins. So, yeah, I mean, they did that. They did the Evolution reunion on the 1000th episode of SmackDown, which was in DC, right? Monster pop for Batista there.
He's a fucking legend there, man. Nobody's really from DC. It's very difficult to be from DC because there's not that many places in DC to be from. It's a very small place.
Yeah. I popped real big when he threw the little dagger at Triple H in that promo because I'm like, oh shit, they're actually going to do this.
Yeah, I remember other people being like, ew, they're going to do this, and I was like, they're going to do this, yeah.
Then We're getting into real weird territory here because we're talking about something that happened like 2 months ago.
That's so weird,
Um,
Steve. We don't do this.
February 25th, 2019. Let's peel back the curtain here and reveal what was going on the night we did this. We were doing a podcast while this happened.
Yes.
I had Raw on in the background on mute. You did not.
No.
So as we're talking about like WrestleMania 15 or some bullshit, like I'm trying to contain myself as I'm watching this Batista return segment.
Because I'm one of those lame people who has like a full no spoilers allowed.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell me that Batista is coming out before I can go and see it. So Steve's just like holding it in.
Yeah, like I'm just like, oh yeah, and then they hang the big boss man, and as that's going on in the background, Batista's appeared on the screen and he's murdering Ric Flair.
And all I knew was that Steve was suffering, and I had to immediately go and watch Raw so we could talk about it.
What a great segment that was!
Perfect. Every segment since he came back with that one, perfect.
I knew Batista was going to be there. I did not see that coming.
And in retrospect, like, of course something like that would happen. But, like, WWE does so many lame segments these days. Like, back in the Attitude Era, if they were like, we're going to do an appreciation for Ric Flair, it's going to be like, all right, somebody's going to murder Ric Flair. But now it's just like, sometimes they really do just do like a 20-minute retrospective on assholes. It's just like, oh, I guess we're going to have a boring 20-minute Ric Flair segment. Okay. So it was just such a great moment to have something like that happen.
And yeah, Batista's subsequent promos, all excellent. I think the Kiss My Ass Hunter promo is my favorite.
Just come out and only say those words.
Yeah. Continuing his amazing fashion sense with like his vests and his ties.
He looks great. And then when he came out at WrestleMania, just looking like old time Batista.
He's
like
50 years old. How does he look that good?
He looked like 2006 Batista.
Yeah.
Like just straight up. He had like new ink, and that's the only difference. And then like everybody was clowning him for tripping getting into the ropes. He's 50 and he hasn't wrestled in 10 years.
How about this? What a pro he was. He got out of the ring and redid his entrance so they could edit out him slipping.
Yes. Like, again, some people just have instincts that work.
Yeah.
Most people don't. Almost nobody does, frankly. But some people, like The Rock is another one, where just like every minute detail of everything The Rock does is just on point. And Batista was one of those guys. He couldn't wrestle like The Rock. They couldn't even really talk like The Rock, but he just found his own way that like everything he put his personal stamp on it in his way and just made it brilliant.
Yeah. I think most of the time when we talk about wrestlers who had great facial expressions, it's people with like comical facial expressions like Vince and William Regal. Like Batista has amazing facial expressions, and they're not funny and they're not like over the top. They're subtle, but they communicate when they need to.
Batista's got like 5 different smiles that all mean different things, but you know them all by heart. Like right now, if I told you like Batista's dickhead smile, you could just see it in your head. Batista's about to kill you smile.
Yeah.
And then that's like when he would go stone faced. And just like I would watch the segment earlier today where he went stone face on Ray and killed him. And like when he did it, like I got anxious. Like, oh no, something horrible's about to happen. And like it's so difficult to convey complex things to like a huge audience in a huge arena with just a facial expression. And that's just a level of killing it that most people never attain.
How hard did you mark out for his WrestleMania entrance?
Well, you've seen that YouTube video of Xavier Woods doing the machine gun.
I love that. I got up and did the fucking machine guns with him in my living room.
I just yelled out, "I walk alone."
What a great song.
God, just so good.
It's too good for a heel to enter too.
But yeah, man, it never really worked when he was a heel. That's why you were right.
What a shit. Yeah. Oh, heel like Spotlight Batista with the old school music would have been terrifying.
Yes. But like,
also, he's another of those guys who could have come out to silence and it would have been perfect.
Oh, absolutely. Here's the thing. Batista, just to kind of sum up, Batista isn't one of like the most legendary performers of all time, especially not in the ring. He had maybe 10 good to great matches in his career.
And that Triple H match at WrestleMania was not one of
No,
them.
that match was ass.
They did their best. It wasn't much.
That match was bad.
Look, but it's the same fucking Triple H matches every year. They're all way too long.
Yeah. But what I find captivating about Batista, when we talk about Batista and like moments from his career just keep coming up again and again and again, it's like special moments that we watched, is just like his character and the way that he played it off were so unique especially during that era, where so few compelling characters were on the screen. Like really, for a long time, it was just like him and Edge, and everyone else just sucked. Or everyone else was just bland and boring and meant nothing. And just like, I remember so vividly watching him and being like, this guy's interesting. And he never stopped being interesting. And that comes from a very real place. And that's why if we didn't appreciate him then, we absolutely should take time to appreciate him now.
Yeah. Ooh, I mean, yeah. How would you sum up Batista's legacy in wrestling?
I mean, I think the thing that will be remembered about him is the evolution turn.
Yeah.
Like that's never going to die, right? Like that's a keystone moment in wrestling history. I'm not sure what else really gets remembered. Just like the general feel that he was like a cool guy.
Yeah.
And like,
I mean, he was a pretty big star, but he wasn't a huge star. He was the top guy on the secondary show for most of his career.
Yeah. I'll kind of bring it back to Kevin Nash. Like Kevin Nash has one moment that he's really remembered for. And then everything else is just like, yeah, that dude was cool as fuck. That's a career.
Yeah. So yeah, that wraps it up for Big Dave Batista.
Big Dave.
What a legend. There'll never be another one.
Nope.
Ooh. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you again next time.